Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Leprous, Aphelion, out August 27th on Century Media Records. This album has 10 tracks, 56 minutes in length, and this is the band's 7th full-length studio album. They are a Norwegian progressive metal band. Now, this is a record that's really built around the individuality of the songs and not necessarily a sense of community amongst all 10 tracks. There is no roadmap. There is no path. There is no red line connecting every single song, allowing you to feel like you're on a journey. This is really about the individuality of the tracks, the moment in which they were created and what they represent, the soundscape that they give, and the atmosphere that comes from it. So don't expect to come into this album and start to feel like there is a theme to it, that there is a sense of continuity, that there is a sense of transporting you from song to song and almost getting lost in the path that you're taking as the journey of this album progresses. That's not what this album is all about. This really is a record that allows you to get the most out of each and every single song, but you almost have to reset your expectations, reset your mindset as you're moving from track to track. Having said that, there's absolutely zero impact on the overall playability of the record. This is still a great sounding album. This is still an album that offers great playability from beginning to end. You just have to change your perception of what this record is going to be like. You just have to change your mindset and approach it in a much different way than perhaps you would approach previous Leprous albums. Now, once you get into the soundscape, this is a very diverse sounding album. Like I said, the chaos that exists in the structure is also really well represented in the soundscape and then in the atmosphere. Very rich record. There are songs that offer a lot of different layers, a lot of different things for you to process, for you to break it down and really get into the nitty-gritty, into the meat and bones of what makes those songs tick and the emotion that drove their construction. There's other tracks that offer a little bit more simplicity, but don't be fooled by that simplicity because the sound may sound simple at the first glance, but the more you dive into the tracks, the more you discover about them. So this is one of those records that sometimes it may feel simple at the first glance, it may feel like there's not much there, but the more you listen to the record, the more you dive deeper into the album, the more you're going to discover about this record. I've listened to this album several times. I still feel like every time I press play, it still feels fresh. It still feels like it's the first time that I'm going through it because there were some elements that weren't really clear to me at first glance, and then at second, third, fourth, fifth glance, you start to really get a little bit a better understanding of what the tracks are all about, of how they were constructed, of how they're coming across like that. What is the sound doing? What are the elements within the sound creating? Because this is a record that doesn't live off of one single element. You can't say that this is a guitar-driven album or an atmospheric-driven album. This record really lives off of the combination of everything that was put on the table, not necessarily one single element. Now, you can talk about a few things within the soundscape that have an impactful role, but even those elements don't really drive the overall experience. You can talk about the cellos, you can talk about the violins. I really like the inclusion of those two elements in the overall soundscape, more so for the atmosphere that they create, the darkness that they bring into the forefront. You can talk about the keyboards. I felt like the keyboard sound on this record was really important in order to create a little bit of a sense of fluidity, a sense of life, a sense of a pulse, if you will, within the tracks. But even the keyboards are not really driving the experience. You can talk about the guitars and how incredibly sounding they feel, like they have a lot of life. They almost feel like a heartbeat at times. How subdued the drums are, how controlled they are in their approach. You can talk about all these different elements, but there's not one single one of them that really becomes the main focal point of every single track. From song to song, they change their role. Their perception changes to you as a listener. You have different ones moving into the spotlight, coming back out of that spotlight. Then in the next song, another one moves into that spotlight. So there's a lot of diversity of approach, and there's a lot of diversity of who takes the reign of the soundscape of this album, always morphing, always changing. Perhaps the only thing that stays very consistent from start to finish is Einar Solberg's vocals. Incredible, just outstanding vocal performance. Not that I was expecting anything less from him. He has an incredible voice, and I felt like on this record, because perhaps there was a less of a focus on the soundscape being more thematic in terms of taking you from one track to another and creating a sense of a journey. His voice is able to do a lot more in terms of creating the ebbs and flows within the tracks, in terms of being the narrator without being a narrator, but really being that focal point that stays balanced and consistent from beginning all the way to the end. Absolutely phenomenal performance on this album. Overall, this is a record that perhaps is going to interest the fans of Leprous, and it's going to show a different side of the band, still connecting to what they've done in the past. It always comes down to what is your perception and what is your mindset coming into this album. If you're looking for something a little bit more together, a little bit more thematic in terms of having a journey, having a path, having a sense of continuity, understanding that the first song is going to tie into the second song and therefore moving down the line, this album is going to feel very broken. It's going to feel very chaotic, and perhaps you're going to be a little bit standoffish at first glance. If you're coming in more from a pure creative perspective and you want to hear these guys creating songs that don't have boundaries, that don't follow a paradigm, that don't follow a sense of a path, a sense of continuity, that they're just individual songs within the context of a record, then this album is still going to be Leprous the way you would expect them to be. Super creative, super outside the box, always pushing boundaries. As far as favorite songs goes, I want to start off with Out of Here. A great synthesizer and vocals. The combo of those two really becomes that Leprous DNA, and it's definitely present on this song. It offers great dark, melancholic atmosphere all around. It's stripped down. It has a neon soundscape. That's the best way to describe how this song comes across. And the last third of the track really ignites, really explodes, gains volume, gains substance. That melodic atmosphere doesn't really change from part to part, is still there. But the second half of the song, or the last third of the song, really becomes a lot bigger, a lot more bombastic. Have You Ever is also a great track. The piano on it sounds absolutely phenomenal. It really becomes this warm, dark embrace that brings you in and keeps you in. The vocals mixed in with the piano give this jazzy atmosphere to the overall track that I just thought was magnificent. It almost feels like a prog cabaret song when you think about the atmosphere, the sound, and then how the vocals come across. Really interesting experience. A song that really takes you into a much different place than everything that came up until that point and everything that comes after it. Last but not least, the shadow side. The vocals on this track really guide the experience. They're just outstanding. The range is so warm. It really defines the ebbs and flows of the track itself. The drums are so subtle in the background, just really clearing the space, clearing the road for the vocals to come on top of it and really shine and be the ebbs and flows and be the momentum creator, the one that really ignites the track and moves it forward. Finishing with a lot of volume, a lot of power, something they do quite a bit on this record, which is starting the songs more melodic, more melancholic, more stripped down, and then finishing them with a lot more power, a lot more heaviness. Great guitar solo on this track as well, really exploding, really emphasizing what the guitars were doing more in a subdued manner, now bringing them into the forefront, adding volume, adding that incredible solo to it, really making the song finish on an incredible note. This is it. This is Leprous with Aphelion, out August 27 on Century Media. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.